So this is an absolutely extraordinary set of clips that I'm going to show you. I was actually shocked to see this yesterday. Kevin Roberts, who many of you will now be aware, is the president of the Heritage Foundation. In the aftermath of Tucker Carlson's fawning, unchallenging interview with modern-day Nazi Nick Fuentes, Kevin Roberts, who has association with Tucker, put out a statement saying there's a venomous coalition seeking division, trying to say the conservative movement should distance itself from Tucker Carlson, and nothing could ever make me distance from Tucker. And let's be clear, criticism of Israel's actions, that kind of thing, is not anti-Semitism. Now, this was so clearly missing the point. It was so clearly showing a total lack of moral clarity. And actually, more than that, he was saying and suggesting all kinds of alarming things. There's nothing Tucker Carlson could ever do that would make you distance yourself from him. And it raised all kinds of disturbing questions. And by the way, Tucker Carlson has a long history now of engaging in peddling anti-Jewish and anti-Israel tropes. And I can go into that in more detail perhaps in future videos. But for now, what happened, and what I want to show you, is Heritage staff had a private meeting where Kevin Roberts, to his credit, was prepared to just stand in front of them and listen to their criticism, their thoughts. Now, some are saying that this video was leaked and it was not meant to be shown to the public. I'm not sure what the truth is there, but this was an internal staff meeting. I actually know some of the people there, and it was quite moving to hear them basically express deep frustration, some even calling on Roberts to resign. Now, I want to give you a bit of feedback and thoughts on what Roberts said in the aftermath, how he handled it. But before I do that, I want to show you the first of several staffers that I'm going to show you clips of. Have a watch of this one, where this woman really goes for the jugular and makes it extremely brave. Don't forget, this is her boss, the person that decides who to hire and fire at Heritage, presumably. She made an extremely impassioned case and called for his resignation in light of total, clear moral ambiguity at the very best, and lack of moral clarity at worst. Have a watch of her words, and then I'll come back to you on the other side.
Amy.
Dr. Roberts, you've repeatedly emphasized that these all-staff meetings are the place in which we are to use radical candor within Heritage. So please allow me to be radically candid. I hope you don't mind. I also brought notes.
Yeah, no problem, Amy.
Sir, I know that you're a patriot. I know that you care very deeply about this nation. You care about this institution. We've accomplished some remarkable things under you. I also have every reason to believe you are a good and decent man, and I know that you're my brother in Christ. And yet, after all of the events of the last week, I stand here today with no ability to say I have confidence in your leadership for this institution moving forward. And I also know that that sentiment is shared by others in this room who, for reasons that I think are perfectly reasonable, especially given what we've seen this last week, are afraid to say that exact same thing openly and directly. But as you yourself have said, now is the time for courage. And Dr. Roberts, over the last week, you have shown a stunning lack of both courage and judgment. There's nothing ambiguous about what we saw happen. Tucker Carlson invited a Holocaust-denying neo-Nazi onto his show and then spent roughly 2 hours doing little more than flirting with him. And when our friends and allies on the right, staunch conservatives, rightly and reasonably criticized Tucker for throwing softball questions at a Hitler apologist, we had options at that point. We could have, and in my opinion, should have, joined them. We could have led from the front and lovingly rebuked our ally. Loving rebuke is an action that, respectfully, even Helen Keller could see is not the same thing as participating in cancel culture. We also could have just said nothing at all. Instead, we managed to scrape together an initial response that, at best, was equal parts incoherent, unhelpful, and naive. At worst, as others have referenced, it was more akin to a masterclass in cowardice that ran cover for the most unhinged dregs of the far right. The next 4 days, I think, for me, were even more worrying because you appeared to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge any real semblance of accountability. nothing about that seemed to indicate you really wanted the buck to stop with you. It seemed at first as though you wanted the buck to stop with your chief of staff, and only after it became clear that Ryan falling on his sword would be insufficient to quell the outrage both inside and outside of this building did we finally see you manage the courage to utter the words, "I made a mistake." And quite frankly, even if you had managed to say that 4 hours after that video, it would have been a weak response. But sir, it took you 4 days to say that. And even then, the mistake was couched largely in terms of, well, I'm sorry you guys just didn't really understand the words that were coming out of my mouth, and maybe I should have spoken better, but also maybe try to listen better this time. With all due respect, Dr. Roberts, we all understood what you said in the video and in the ensuing response. It wasn't that we weren't ready for some additional nuance. It was that little of what you said actually made sense to us. We watched you seem perfectly willing to attack all of our friends and allies on the right, but say nothing about the guy who just said he dislikes nothing more than Christian Zionists, a term which he seems to use to mean basically anyone who supports Israel and includes many people in this room. And then we watched this sort of incoherent defense for days of, well, we can't participate in cancel culture, and anyone who attacks Tucker is participating in cancel culture, but also we're going to attack the people who are participating in that cancel culture, and that's not cancel culture. And sir, maybe I'm just a simple human, but there's not enough grass that I can touch to make that make sense. Those are not the actions of a man who knows what time it is. And frankly, I'm not even sure they're the actions of a man who knows how to tell time. And so while I am very grateful for what I have seen Heritage accomplish and for what you have done within the movement, I don't know how I can stand here with a straight face and tell you that I have confidence in your leadership. And I want to address very quickly the inevitable next question of then, Amy, if you don't have faith in this leadership, shouldn't you just resign? No, respectfully, I shouldn't just resign, and I am not just resigning. I've been here for 8 years, and I walked into this building today more committed than ever to building an America where freedom, opportunity, prosperity, and civil society flourish. And my scholarship, like the scholarship of so many of my colleagues who, like me, are equally dumbfounded and astounded at what we've seen this week, that scholarship powerfully and compellingly furthers our mission. And so by resigning, we would accomplish nothing. We would only manage to hold the wrong person accountable for what, frankly, I can only characterize as an institutional series of horrible, terrible, no good, very bad, self-imposed injuries that we've seen. But I love this institution. And when this meeting is over, I'm going to go back to my office and I'm going to do what I have always done. I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. I'm going to put on my helmet, I'm going to fix my shoulder pads, and I'm going to go be a cheerful warrior. But I don't, for the life of me, know how we are supposed to have any faith right now in the person leading this team.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate your radical candor. I respect it. I respect you. And most of all, I'm grateful that, given what you said, that you're still committed to Heritage. And I ask you to still be. So thank you.
So I'm going to show you, I listened to the whole for hour and 20 minutes or hour and a half discussion, basically. Maybe it was even longer. I think it was an hour and 40 minutes. And I've handpicked some of the most powerful and compelling inputs from staff that I'm going to show you afterwards towards the end of this video. And you can, I think you should take the time to watch them because a lot of the staff make some really powerful and important points. And it shows, by the way, a lot of great people there at Heritage. But before I do that, I want to tell you a bit about what Kevin Roberts said in the aftermath. Now, watching him, if you watch the full video, you'll see he was definitely very humble. He was in a listening state. He showed respect to absolutely everyone. And it definitely seems clear to me that he does not necessarily share all the viewpoints with Tucker Carlson. The problem, though, is that I don't think he was giving enough moral clarity here. My question is why? He was prepared to kind of start to go there after, 3 different statements and the huge amounts of pressure just to understand the obvious. But let's have a watch what he said here.
I made the mistake of conflating too much the personal friendship I have with Tucker. Although I want to be really clear, I don't think that everything, or maybe even most of what he does now, is helpful or good. But conflating that with particularly the word always as the institution. And even the
by always, he means saying I'll always stand by Tucker Carlson.
Institution can say Tucker will be a friend, but that's different than saying that you endorse everything the friend does. Some of you are friends of mine personally, and you say, well, I'm grateful to you, Kevin, as a friend. I'm grateful to you as the president of Heritage, but that was a mistake. It doesn't mean you've got to endorse that, right? So that's what we're working on.
Well, I think it goes further than that. Again, what someone wants to do in their private life and private friends is a different matter. But if you as an institution are having associations with someone and making public statements about someone they're messaging, then you do have a duty to provide moral clarity. And now, look, he is saying, I don't think even most of what Tucker says now is helpful or good. Okay, great. But I think, to be honest, now that he is doing this, he needs to be making public statements about Tucker Carlson, who is a leading light of the right, how what he's doing is laundering and sometimes peddling himself in immoral viewpoints. And I think, having watched the hour and 40 minutes thing, I understand he's worried about walking this tightrope where he's trying to have as wide a coalition as possible. And I don't know exactly where his heart is on all kinds of specific political matters too. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to provide moral clarity. He will say, and I heard him say, look, we don't want to alienate all the Fuentes and Carlson supporters. So what does that mean? That you therefore, when you, especially when you're asked about it, or if you choose to make a statement about them, that you don't provide that moral clarity? That's like saying, you have a child and you want to make sure that, your child's, you stay in your child's good books. So you're not going to call him out when he does something wrong. You're not going to try and guide him towards a better path. You're not going to give him that moral clarity. That's not how parents should act. That's not how teachers should act. That's not how political organizations should act. The way people respect you, and you're saying you don't want to alienate the the young men who want, masculine roles. Okay, so be a man and stand up and show moral clarity. They will respect that. If you show that clearly, listen to their concerns, understand, say why some grievances are illegitimately blamed on certain groups. If you do that, that is actually, I think, what good, healthy masculinity is about. Taking responsibility, not blaming. And a grievance culture, which is what anti-Semitism feeds on. This was a statement, and again, I'm going to get back in a second to more staff clips that I want to show you. But before we do that, let's see what Kevin Roberts put out afterwards. This is what he said literally just a few hours ago after the meeting.
I want to speak plainly, both as president of the Heritage Foundation and also as an American who understands the urgency of this moment. Leadership requires owning the moments where we fall short, then using them to reset, refocus, and recommit. I talked about this today, as you may have seen, during our Heritage All-Staff Town Hall. I'm so grateful for my amazing colleagues. My use of the phrase venomous coalition was a terrible choice of words. It caused justified concern, especially among friends and allies who know how seriously Heritage has fought and continues to fight against the rise of anti-Semitism. Everyone has the responsibility to speak up against the scourge of anti-Semitism, no matter the messenger. Heritage and I will do so, even when my friend Tucker Carlson needs challenging. My Heritage colleagues know, as do you, the work ahead is too important.
So now he goes on to talk about the work ahead and all of that. Okay, but he says, I will call out my friend Tucker Carlson when he needs challenging. Okay, so call him out and say what he has done wrong. Say why the politics he's engaging in with people and guests and laundering his views through the guests he has on that engage in anti-Western, anti-Semitic, racist, ahistorical, immoral viewpoints, pro-Stalin, pro-Russia, say that. So he's like, I keep seeing each time he's kind of getting closer and closer, and was, behind closed doors in that meeting saying, a lot of or most of what Tucker Carlson says is wrong. He is not helpful or good, is his words. It's just, I think one can give a bit more moral clarity now, because it's like almost like a side comment. Just say it. I don't understand why the conservative movement can't just say that outright. We do have a duty to provide moral clarity, and calling that cancel culture, I mean, it's just absurd. So basically, anyone who's on my side of the aisle politically, even though I don't really see why you should consider these people the same side as yours politically, but if you say anyone in my team, anyone in my camp, I will not call them out. If anything, you have a greater moral and political responsibility to make sure your own side aren't getting lost. Now, one of the reasons that's been suggested as maybe why he hasn't been able to go after Tucker Carlson or to criticize him, I don't know if this is true or not, but just something I saw, is that supposedly Tucker Carlson includes a non-disparagement in perpetuity clause to all contracts. This includes contracts with sponsors and advertisers. As a reminder, for those not up to date, the Heritage Foundation's advertising contract with Tucker Carlson's show was a 12-month sponsorship agreement valued at $1.2 million, covering about 17 episodes at $75,000 per episode, and ran from June 2024 to May 2025. The terms of this contract likely stipulate that Heritage and any employee or contractually affiliated Heritage person is legally prohibited from exercising their free speech rights, meaning that they cannot publicly say anything about Tucker that might legally be interpreted as disparagement forever. Given the high-quality video was posted by Free Beacon today, I find it hard to believe that the leak was a rogue staffer. Isn't it far more plausible that as a part of damage control, don't forget they're probably bleeding big donors and partners, Heritage leaked it on purpose in order to show Kevin is critical of Tucker's views without legally being in violation of the agreement? Wow, I wonder. Someone wrote down here, if that is true, Heritage should intentionally breach and stand on principle, and truth is an absolute defense to any such clause, so it wouldn't actually be a breach. Even better if there's a public trial where Heritage meticulously explains its position. Susie replied, contracts are contracts. Unless you were coerced under duress to sign something, it's legit, they're stuck, as is every sponsor. Now, I don't know, I can't say if this for sure is something they signed up to specifically, but if it is, that would explain a lot, wouldn't it? So this is, a bit of a pickle, to say the least, that they've got themselves into. But I as I say, Kevin seemed, from what I could see, that he was, he came across at least as prepared to listen to and respect his colleagues. But I just don't think he's going the full mile of what's necessary. And now I'd like to go back to my hand-selected clips from staffers. And I've tried to get a little bit of Kevin's reaction, so you can see, in fairness to him, he was very respectful and listening. But I want to show you some of their moral clarity, where they've identified a lot of the issues here. Have a watch, because I think this is really important viewing.
Rachel, question?
Thank you. My name is Rachel Gresler. I have been at Heritage for 12 years now. And I just want to say that I am deeply loyal to this institution, to my freedom-loving colleagues, and to those who created this flagship institution. As more and more of my friends and family have continued to criticize Heritage and even question whether it is worth saving, I have continued to tell them that there are so many good, genuine, smart, and principled people here. But it has become increasingly difficult to continue to defend the Heritage Foundation when we see those people, those smart and principled people, have their voices squashed or have them leave Heritage entirely. One voice policies used to be deliberated and debated, including in forums like this. Instead, it seems that they are increasingly being decided in closed-door meetings among a few elite people without regard to the opinions of hundreds of Heritage staff, and often in utter disregard to the policy experts themselves and to decades of long-standing Heritage positions. We've been told that our principles haven't changed, just some of the policies have changed. But if our policies directly contradict our principles, then either our principles have changed or we have no principles. Instead of promoting and defending policies that will improve the lives of ordinary Americans every day, it feels like we're increasingly being asked to promote and defend certain people without regards to their policies or their morals. For me, this latest video defending Tucker Carlson for platforming somebody who spews murderous hatred and has said some of the most vile and horrendous things, not only about Jews, but also about women and Black people. This was the final straw for me. It's just the last one, but there are many that have come before it. It also gave credence to our protesters who are out there every day and put further at risk the safety of Heritage employees. Kevin, you are winsome and you have always been kind to me, but I do not believe that you are the right person to lead the Heritage Foundation.
Thank you for your comments, Rachel. You know that I respect you.
So I personally don't understand what support for Israel has to do with any of this. That's not what went on here. What happened is that Tucker, who I've been friends with for a long time, platformed is the word, a Nazi, Stalinist. I was going to say misogynist, but that's too light a word for it. Racist. And what I've had a problem with, and I agree, I think people should be judged not just on one statement, but on the totality of what they've done. And I think you've done a lot of great things. I've read your book. It's a call to action. That's important. I've listened to many things you said here. But what I don't understand is how a statement like this could bubble up from here, even if one person wrote it, you read it with passion. I've been struggling with it because I love it here. I've only been here 9 months, 8 months. I love it. And I don't understand how a statement like this can bubble up, because the totality of it is not to go after this wannabe Hitler who now has millions of followers, and many more because of Tucker, and more also because of the continuing controversy here that has kept this story alive. I'm a journalist, for 5-6 days. And so I guess, when I listened to Ben Shapiro yesterday and I heard that absolute moral clarity that he had, and knowing you as a moral person with Christian, I'm Jewish, I happen to be Jewish, but you don't have to be Jewish to have these feelings. But with, I respect Christianity and the ideas that have flown from it, that have come from it, which are basically the foundation of this country. And I don't understand how you come up with something which basically is attacking, not just defending Tucker, but attacking those who are after him for platforming this sort of very dangerous, not just evil, but dangerous man. And I wonder how statements like you mentioned, the other statement about the venomous coalition, there was another one here. Conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government. I agree with that. As a Jew, I think too many people, put Israel, and Jews also, will put Israel ahead of the United States. Now, you're not an anti-Semite if you do that, although plenty of people who do that are anti-Semites, frankly. But you're not necessarily an anti-Semite. But then you said no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington. Did you understand when you said that that's a dog whistle for international Jewry and AIPAC? That's my concern, is that's how that sounds to me when I heard that. And so I guess what I'm saying is I want to just present to you that that's where my struggle is. Yes, people make mistakes. Yes, people apologize for mistakes, but I don't understand how this statement that you made with passion even comes out of here. And I want to, because I have really enjoyed your leadership and I really enjoy being here. And, but sometimes, it's not just a mistake. does this represent, I could never make a statement like this, and I know a lot of people couldn't, and I don't know why you could, and that's what I would love for you to explain to me.
Thanks immensely for your very fair question, for your own magnanimity, because I misread the situation. And the advice that I got, I took the advice, I didn't stop, I own that, it was bad. And I should have been better in that moment to do that. I want to reassure you that phrase like globalist class, I'm thinking you said you read my book. When I take on globalism, I have no one of any faith in mind. I understand, especially now over the last 6 days, because of conversations with particularly Jewish friends, but not exclusively Jewish friends, that's one of the mistakes. And I'm sorry for that.
Dr. Gardner?
Thanks very much, and thank you for holding this very important discussion. I think one of the great things about Heritage is we're all able to come together and discuss ideas and debate them also. And I speak as someone who has a deep love of Heritage. I've been here for nearly a quarter of a century. I think this is my 24th year. I've loved every day that I've worked here at Heritage. I'm proud to work here.
A quick message. We all hear about the Palestinian displacement, or Nakba, of 1948. But there was another, even greater displacement that we haven't been told about. Nearly 1 million Jews were expelled from Arab lands at the exact same time. Watch the trailer for our new and absolutely essential documentary called The Real Nakba. And if you want to watch the full film, just click the link below in the video description. We've all been told about the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe of 1948. Around 700,000 Arabs were displaced. But here's what you're rarely told. That displacement didn't come from some Jewish plan for genocide. It wasn't Israel's goal. It wasn't Israel's desire. It happened because Arab leaders launched a war of annihilation. They tried to wipe out the newborn Jewish state, vowing to drive the Jews into the sea. And in the chaos of that war, people fled. Many because their leaders told them to, promising they'd return after victory. But the term Nakba was originally used to describe the fact that the Arabs lost the war, not the displacement. Now the term describes the displacement of war used as a political weapon against Israel. But there was another Nakba you haven't been told about. A catastrophe rooted not in the fog of war, but in the clear, deliberate desire for persecution and genocide. It happened at the very same time, and it led to even more displacement. Yet most of the world has never heard of it. Over 850,000 Jews, more than the number of displaced Arabs, were driven from their homes across the Arab world. Communities that had thrived for millennia were uprooted overnight. Families stripped of citizenship, of property, of dignity, assaulted, expelled, forced to flee with nothing but their faith. Why? Because they were Jews. Because Israel dared to exist. Because the Arab League openly orchestrated it, drafting plans in 1947 to freeze Jewish bank accounts, seize property, and intern Jews as enemy nationals. This is the real Nakba, a catastrophe born of pure anti-Semitism. In this JTV documentary, we'll journey country by country, from Baghdad to Cairo, from Sana'a to Tripoli, uncovering buried truths and survivor voices. And no, this isn't a tale of victimhood, it's a saga of endurance, courage, and triumph. Because the Jewish people didn't just survive this Nakba, we rebuilt, we came home. In Israel, our phoenix soared from the ashes. So buckle up and let's dive in. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.
And I also have immense respect for Kevin's leadership, and just wanted to mention a recent example of that leadership. When we went to Helsinki, Kevin addressed an audience of European business leaders, some of the most powerful business leaders in Europe, and Kevin told this audience that we should be standing for Brexit. We should see Brexits all over Europe. Every European Union country needs its own Brexit. And that was a moment of tremendous courage and leadership and principle. And I greatly respect that. And I greatly respect your leadership, Kevin. I just have a few words really about policy and the direction that Heritage has taken with regard to Tucker Carlson. And I do think that with Tucker, he's someone who I first met actually many decades ago when he was a co-host of Crossfire and I was a guest on his show. And I do think that Tucker has played a very important role in shaping the conservative movement over many, many years. But I think in recent years, Tucker has moved towards very extreme positions. And as Robert Rector pointed out, some of the guests that he's hosted have been people who really, in my view, are very destructive. They promote anti-Semitism. You see supporters of Hitler, enemies of Winston Churchill, the enemies of Western civilization. And I do think that we have to really speak out against that because we are the leaders of the conservative movement. The Heritage Foundation is the battleship of the conservative movement. And when we see examples of outrageous anti-Semitism, racism, etc., and attacks upon the very foundations of this great nation, we need to stand up and condemn those statements and those actions. And unfortunately, Tucker has given a platform to, frankly, some of the enemies of Western civilization. And without a doubt, I think right now, this is a defining moment for the Heritage Foundation. We have got to stand on the side of righteousness. We have to defend the very principles of the founding of Heritage, but also the founding of this great nation of the United States. And I had the privilege of becoming an American citizen over a decade ago. I'm greatly proud of this wonderful nation and for everything it stands for. It's a real honor to be an American citizen. And we've got to fight and defend everything this great nation stands for. And we've got to stand up to the hatred that's out there from some elements who claim to be conservatives, but they're not. And Heritage is such a powerful, strong voice. And I do hope that moving forward, we are going to stand up and condemn those who frankly seek to undermine the conservative movement and who undermine the foundations of this great nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Gardner, very well said, and not just because of your accent, even though you're now an American citizen. I appreciate the generous words, but most importantly, the second half of your comment, your exhortation. We have to. That's the lesson. And it's
I have to say I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have been expressed here. I've been here a long time, and I work at Heritage because, like Amy, I love this institution. If I'd become a partner at a big law firm, I'd be making 10 times as much as I make here. What I have not heard is, look, the damage done to the reputation of Heritage is the worst I have ever seen. And it's not just in the public relations arena. All the conservatives that I know at organizations, institutions, allwhere are just appalled at what's happened. And what I have not heard is a detailed plan to repair that damage. And I mean, not just in the public relations arena, but also with all of our colleagues who are canceling and saying they're not going to come to our events. They're not going to participate in our task forces. And let me tell you, this plan cannot be a secret that only the 8th floor knows about, because unless all of us know what's in that plan, we can't participate in repairing the enormous damage that's been done. And I have to tell you, if the Heritage Foundation and you do not dump Tucker Carlson publicly, we are not going to repair that damage. And I just want to tell you one other thing, because I think this is a huge mistake that you mentioned before about being personal friends with him at Heritage. Listen, years ago when I first got here, I was told I couldn't publish a particular op-ed. So I said, well, can't I publish it on my own without the Heritage byline under it? And a very wise editor who's now retired said to me, Hans, everybody knows who you are. If you publish an op-ed, even if it doesn't have the Heritage byline under it, they're going to say that's the Heritage position. You cannot have a difference between what you say publicly, well, this is my personal thing, and this is heritage, because nobody is going to see the difference. If you're out there speaking, if you're saying this person's a personal friend of mine, everybody out there is going to say, oh, that's a friend of Heritage. Heritage supports them. It's much more so than me, because you're the president of Heritage. And if you think you can make that distinguishing publicly, that's a huge mistake, and it's going to cause us even more problems.
I had some prepared remarks, but between Amy's comments, Rachel's, Jay's, some others, and the way this conversation's gone, I kind of actually want to address my colleagues. For those of you who don't know, I work in the Allison Center, focused on the U.S.-Israel relationship and combating anti-Semitism, Project Esther. It's been a very tough week, to say the least. I'll share that a couple of weeks ago, I met with a Orthodox Jewish student group here, and I said there's no better place inside the Beltway to be Jewish. And I think that's still true. Not that I think, that is still true, excuse me. But it's been a very tough week for obvious reasons, and there's an email chain of the members of the task force to combat anti-Semitism, of which Heritage is a member, but candidly we provide the most resources, I being one of them. So we're a leading member, and obviously we're Heritage. And it's invariably been what is going on. Has Heritage lost its way? What is Kevin doing? Where's the leadership? What's happening? The only kind of saving grace, to borrow a phrase, is that I've built relationships with these people, these organizations. They know it's not you, Daniel, it's not you, your colleagues at Heritage, other members of the task force. But it's very disconcerting. And because we're talking about anti-Semitism and Israel, I want to say from the outset, first of all, I said this to the YLP 2 weeks ago in a lecture. This is not about the Jews. This has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with all of you. By that I mean all of us. That anti-Semitism is many things throughout history, but it is always and invariably a bigotry of grievance. And Ruth Wise, who's a retired professor of Yiddish history from Harvard, said that defines anti-Semitism in some ways as the organization of politics against the Jews. So if someone is trafficking in anti-Semitism, overtly or covertly, they have another objective in mind. And through Project Esther, we're doing this, we see this on the left. Mamdani won last night, trafficked in anti-Semitism. His objective, not to change US policy towards Israel. Globalized Intifada is not about that. It's to affect the United States itself. And so it's a bigotry of grievance that people have. And Tucker, Fuentes, Steve Bannon, Candace Owens, all of their fellow travelers on this side, supposedly, that's all what it's about. It's not about us, it's about you, it's about all of us. And when Tucker says, for example, I want you all to know, when Tucker says that those Americans who serve in the IDF should be stripped of their citizenship, right here, that's me. That's also one of our colleagues in Israel right now fighting in Gaza. And so they're using the vehicle, the opportunity of October 7th, of questions about the U.S.-Israel relationship, about AIPAC being some sort of foreign agent or influencer, all of that, not to go after us, but to go after, on our side of the aisle, the conservative movement. And now it starts with us, the Saturday people, but now it's going to you, the Sunday people. They're going to Christian Zionists. And just for everyone's clarification, there are many different definitions to an extent, but the simplest way to understand Zionism is supporting the Jewish right to self-determination in their ancient homeland. It has nothing to do with the current political boundaries of the state of Israel, the government or policies of Israel, but simply if you support the Jewish right to self-determine in our ancient land. And I submit to you, if you are not a Zionist, please come talk to me. If you have questions about the U.S.-Israel relationship, please come talk to me, or Rob Greenway, or Victoria Coates. We are experts in our fields. If you have questions, come talk to us. My door is open. And if I'm not in the office, message me, please. This is a moment. So the grievance against us right now, us holistically, is trying to divide the conservative movement. That's what they're doing, successfully. And Ben Shapiro's his show the other day, masterclass in demonstrating that. And mind you, it was on Twitter yesterday that Tucker's interview with Fuentes got the same number of views as Ben's did, but was on the air for like a week longer. The support is not with those kooks, as the president called them. So, but at the end of the day, it has been 6 days, almost a week, where we as an organization have been unable to utter the words. To some extent, if you want to cut through it, Tucker's anti-Semite, and we as Heritage do not want to associate with him. And we still do not have a statement about that. And I'm still getting emails and calls saying, where are you guys? I speak to members of the task force all the time. I don't have direction. I know where I stand. I know where I think all my colleagues stand, but I do not know where the institution stands. And we are bleeding trust, reputation, perhaps donors, who knows what else, support. And someone asked me earlier this week, and I'll end on this, is if Tucker were to, how could Tucker rebuild trust in my mind? I'm like, can't be done overnight. Can't be done with words. It's going to take time. I don't think he'll ever get there. But the point is, you rebuild trust. So we have a plan to rebuild trust. It does not appear to me we do. We are 6 days into this, and there's been no leadership on it.
I have a prepared question because I want to make sure I get the words right. But first, I want to say a few quick things. When I saw the video and I saw the reaction to it, I think part of what I thought is that it didn't feel like your response was a Heritage first response. It felt like it was a response driven mainly by loyalty to a friend. And God knows I appreciate loyalty to friends. So I don't knock you for that, but it felt like there was a tension between that personal commitment and the institutional commitment. So I hope moving forward, in the same way we talk about sort of our national leaders having their first obligation be to the citizens who elect them, that the first obligation would be to the institution. And I have no doubt that that's...
Yeah. And I don't use that verb lightly. Yeah. I promise you that.
Yeah. Second is I want to commend you and your leadership. Human nature is typically resistant to criticism. And I say this not to be cheeky and not to be too lighthearted, but as a husband, I understand this very deeply. So to sit and have people openly criticize you in front of colleagues is not an easy thing to do, especially in this town where people tend to want to blame other people for their failure. So I respect that. I respect your leadership. I have complete confidence in you moving forward as a leader of Heritage. So here's my question. It's apparent to me that we have a problem with ethnic and religious hostility, particularly on the terminally online right. I want to frame it properly.
Well said.
And this is driven in large part by questions of who qualifies as a real American, which goes back to some of the questions we have internally about citizenship and some of those policy issues that we want to get to. This is not just about Jewish and Black people. It extends to people of Indian descent and even to some Muslims as well. I think this is in part a reaction to decades of the left stretching definitions and weaponizing identity to shield itself or different groups from any criticism of ideas and conduct. As I said, it's not just a matter of race and identity. We get this when we stand up for the reality of biological sex and are accused of being transphobes. So that's just one sort of flavor of it. But that stick does not work in the way it did in past decades. And when I say stick, I mean people saying, accusing you of transphobia, homophobia, racism, anti-Semitism. So my question is, what does the future of the conservative movement look like when accusations of racism and anti-Semitism are met with thank you rather than I'm sorry?
Before you go, you have to check out the trailer for our new documentary on Moshiach, the Jewish belief about the Messiah, what he will do, how the world will look after his coming, and why his arrival is close. And if you want to watch the full thing, just click the link below in the video description. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have carried a promise that history is not a random cycle, that suffering and darkness and exile are not the end of the story, that one day the world will be redeemed and the Messiah, the Moshiach in Hebrew, will come. But what does that actually mean? Who is Moshiach? When will he come? How will we know he's real? Why would God design a world that waits so long for redemption in the first place? And what will life feel like after he comes? With AI and machines beginning to replace work, maybe we're already catching a glimpse. But then what will we do with our days? The prophets spoke of that world long ago. In this groundbreaking JTV Plus documentary, we uncover the truth about the Jewish vision of the Messiah, who he is, why it matters, and why his coming could be closer than you think. Join us as we reveal the truth about history's most anticipated figure. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.